Okay, we are live, and I'm sending this email now.
That's awesome, buddy.
Okay. Screen share. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Just giving a couple seconds for people to get on the line. Hi, everyone. My name is Rudy, and I'm the social media manager for ilikemywaitress.com. And we're so glad you're here to join us for more tips, less stress. We just wanted to do this presentation because we are totally here for you guys. And we've been listening over the last month and a half, really asking about what matters to you on the floor, what matters to your pocketbook, what are the things that you're most interested in. And overwhelmingly, there were two things that came back: making more tips and what to do when you get weeded. So we brought in one of the best people we know on the subject, and we're here to talk about this. We've got a Q&A session available, and we're gonna jump in, and this webinar is going to be about 30 to 45 minutes, just going over everything that we know, everything in the kitchen sink, actionable tips and strategies that you can use right now to earn more and make more. So what we're going to cover today, we had over 100 questions submitted over the last 6 weeks, and tonight we're going to go over a few key things. How to have grace under fire when things get crazy in your restaurant, actionable, clear strategies that you can get off of this session and use right now to make more tips, earn more money, and support your goals as a server. We're going to get into how to deal with difficult situations with coworkers or managers, and making life better for your manager or your owner of your restaurant, especially if you're looking to become one someday. Really providing that value to your restaurant so you can get that same value back. And also at the end of the session, we've got a really special invitation for motivated app users like you that are here with us. And so let's get started. So let's go over quickly, what is I Like My Waitress? It's an app. It's an iPhone app, to be specific. It's we're in the business to be here to help you earn more and connect with your customers and really track what's going to make a difference with serving your customers and being an all-star at your restaurant. The app's 100% free to use, and it's always going to stay free. And we've got over 2,000 users nationwide right now. And very recently, this last month, the app was nominated as the Entrepreneur of the Year winner at the Nightclub and Bar Expo. You can see in this picture St. Taffer, John Taffer from Spike's Bar Rescue on Spike TV, handing our founding team this awesome award for all the work that they're doing. And our whole company is about serving the people who serve, and really making sure that we're bringing you the best tips and tools and resources to make the most out of every shift that you're on. You can download the app at ilikemywaitress.com, or you can visit us on I Like My Waitress at Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, and you can get rolling right away. So, without further ado, I wanted to introduce our expert tonight, Will Reynolds. He has over 20 years of experience in the service industry, and he's gone all the way from fry cook to fine dining and is on his way to management at a national chain. He's worked as a server, a bartender, a banquet server, and like I mentioned in management, with everything from small chef-owned restaurants all the way to national and international hotel chains like Sofitel and Hilton. And he's recently taken on a new role as manager at the Crown Plaza Suites, directly dealing with guest and customer services. So he's one of the best experts in the field, and he's worked in all different types of cuisine, all different types of environments, and he's extremely passionate about maintaining high service standards and passionate about food and wine and service and talking to people and really helping everyone on his teams remain engaged and conversational and, above all, professional, and getting people to come back. So, hi, Will. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Awesome to be aboard here.
Awesome. Awesome. So, the biggest question that we're getting from everyone is, how do I get better tips? And you told me something that, that really stuck with me. I'm going to move to that on the next slide. So it seems like there's good news and there's bad news for servers. I'd love to hear from you about that.
Well, most customers, the tipping percentage is a force of habit. It's the same regardless of whether they get great service, good service, or adequate service. They're the habitual, 20%, habitual 18%, whatever that percentage is. But there are those out there. There's a number of people out there who actually base their tip percentage on the level of service that they receive. And those are the people that, when you're looking to improve your tip percentage, those are the people that you're looking to persuade first.
Okay, definitely. So what's the number one thing, if you had to isolate and pick one thing that servers can do right now to go out and on their next shift make more money, what would the number one thing be that you recommend them to do?
Right out the gate, something I've been doing from the very beginning is learn to memorize orders rather than writing orders down on a pad of paper. It keeps your mind sharp. Go ahead.
Oh, why does that make a difference?
A couple of reasons. First of all, when you memorize orders, you interact with the guest. You actually look the guest in the eye. You are looking at them as they're telling you your order, and you associate their face and that person with the order that's in your head, as opposed to writing it down on a notepad. Some servers actually don't even look up when they're writing it down. I've seen that happen. And for me, as a server, when I go out to dine, I can't even count the number of times I've been out with another person. It's just the two of us having lunch or having dinner, and the server who has taken our order, who's written it down, comes out, and they have to actually consult their notepad just to figure out who's having what for two people. And these are things that customers notice, they pick up on. The other part of memorizing orders is it makes you faster. It's been proven that being able to ring up orders is a faster process when it's all in your head and you can just go bing, 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 as opposed to having to consult a notepad, looking at the notepad and trying to input the information that way. Mm-hmm. I estimate that on any given evening, if you memorize your orders, that makes you anywhere between 25 and 30% faster than everybody else that's around you, which means you can take more tables, which actually also helps you get to that place of earning more money. I mean, memorizing helps, from a tip percentage standpoint, provide better service, but it also helps you actually take more tables.
Awesome. So, are there any other recommendations that you have around this? Any other steps that people can take?
I mean, some of the things, as we've talked about previously, when you're giving change to a guest, these are just real simple things. But if you're giving change to a guest, let's say a table has a $39 bill, and they pay cash, and they give you a $50. A lot of times, I see servers who return the change to the table, and they'll give the customer 2 5s and coin. Well, in that scenario, more often than not, the patron will leave the 5 and the change and pocket the other 5. So in that case, you actually are making less than, or you're making a little bit under 15%. Now, if you take that same situation and instead of bringing back 2 5s and a coin, you bring back a 5 5 1s and the coin. Now you're putting yourself into a situation where you're more likely to get the customer to leave you a 5 and probably 2 or 3 1s and the coin, and now you're getting closer to that 20% that you want.
Awesome. And you were mentioning to me before about knowing the importance of knowing the menu. Can you tell our audience a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. I mean, knowledge is probably the most important part of serving. Being able to talk to your customers about what's on your menu, to be enthusiastic about certain items that you feel really good about because you've actually tried them, knowing how to, we've all been there, knowing how to steer customers away from menu items that are problematic, ones that aren't very consistent or don't have a lot of flavor. If you approach a shift as looking at yourself as being a curator for everybody's dining experience rather than just kind of being an order taker, you're going to engage the guest at a higher level, and they're going to be much more appreciative of the service that they receive at the end. A lot of people are looking for, especially with hotel restaurants, people are looking for guidance. They're in an unfamiliar restaurant. They're looking to you to tell them what's good. Guide me through your menu, guide me through this dining experience. And the more you can do to help the customer in that regard, the more you can ensure that they're going to have a positive dining experience.
I love that. Really seeing yourself as a tour guide or a concierge, so much more than just someone writing down the order and bringing it out. That really speaks to establishing a much deeper relationship and a much deeper rapport, which of course means that when tip time comes, they're going to be thinking of you in a completely different way than if you were just a pencil and pad.
Some of it is just about having fun. For myself, and I say this all the time, you don't stick with anything for 30 years unless you enjoy some element of it. And for me, I love people, and I love all the people that I meet, and I love talking with people, and talking about sports or talking about whatever is in the air on any particular evening. The more that you can loosen up with a table, and don't ever be afraid to jump into a conversation, not in an intrusive way, but like if you're there pouring water, or if you're there to take an order and you overhear something that is something that you know something about and can have some meaningful input, by all means say something.
Mm-hmm.
Because more often than not, like for myself, it's always a good way of establishing rapport with a customer. And if they're not interested in talking, you'll pick up on that real quick. But it's not going to harm your tip percentage in the end, trying to basically build that rapport with a customer.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to touch on that, building the rapport and establishing a relationship. What happens when, just to be frank, you get customers that suck? That was a huge question that we had, dealing with difficult tables, dealing with people that are having a bad day, dealing with people that are, verbally kind of aggressive and not really in the mood or actively working against the experience. With someone with your level of expertise, I'm sure you've seen your share of doozies. What can you share with our audience about how they can navigate that and have it come out to be a survivable, if not winnable, situation?
Well, the one thing you can't do is fight fire with fire. The thing to remember, when it comes to tables that are problematic, is that they're all different. So there's going to be a unique solution or way of dealing with them, on a case-by-case basis. A lot of it has to do with experience. A lot of it has to do with just, understanding human nature and how to diffuse a particular behavioral type. And that, it sounds real, highfalutin and high-minded, but the reality is, dealing with a customer who is just sullen and quiet is different than dealing with an angry drunk, which is, for want of a better way to put it, which is different than dealing with someone who comes off as being arrogant and haughty. They're all different types. So there's a different way for dealing with each of them. The one single thread is to maintain professionalism. That's the biggest key, or biggest piece of advice I can throw out there, is always maintain your professionalism, because so long as you can fall back on that, there's really nothing. There's no situation that can go further south if you maintain your professionalism.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to do. It's we're all human beings, especially if people become abusive, and that's I've been very fortunate. In all the years I've been serving, I can count on literally one hand the number of times I've had to deal with those type of people. For the ones that for love or money you can't please, you can't make happy, and in some cases they actually become aggressive and abusive. Um, when it reaches a certain point, from a serving standpoint, obviously it becomes something that gets turned over to management. In some small restaurants, they actually have a policy that's similar to what bartenders always post behind the bar, which is you get out of line, you get out the door. I've worked at those restaurants, and those are kind of nice, actually. It's nice, when managers or owners have your back in that regard. But yeah, that's the biggest part of it. Just like, what do you do, when you get busy? If you keep your head, keep your cool, no matter how stressful, things get with getting triple seated, quadruple seated. No matter how stressful things get with a belligerent customer, always maintain your cool and your professionalism. People around you will notice, other customers will notice, and most importantly, management will notice.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'd love to touch on management for just a second. We've gotten a lot of questions from people who have their eye on management or would like to advance, but aren't quite sure how to begin that process. Obviously, the first step is talking to the owners or managers of your establishment in some way, but do you have any advice or tips on really concrete steps that people can take without feeling like they're overstepping their bounds or feeling like they're showing lack of gratitude for the current position? There's people that really want to advance and would love to know how to open those discussions with owners and with managers. Do you have any advice around that?
Yeah, it begins with showing leadership on the floor as a server, and showing leadership is by demonstrating that you're capable of managing a lunch rush or a dinner rush and keeping your head, by always maintaining professionalism when you're on the floor, being a person who looks, or I should say has a broad purview when you're on the floor, as opposed to having tunnel vision. You see all of the tables and not just your tables. It sounds cliched, but like for myself, I try not to walk back to the kitchen or dish room empty-handed ever. And so if I don't have something that I need to bring back from one of my own tables, if I'm passing somebody else's table and a plate is sitting there and it's obviously ready to go, I pick it up and I bring it with me. These are all the little things that management picks up on, and also servers around you pick up on as well. It's amazing how teamwork is contagious, and if you're seen as a leader of that, within the restaurant that you're working, and again, you demonstrate grace under pressure, strength, and ability to manage rushes, and do so in a way that doesn't result in management having to comp a bunch of food, you're going to give yourself a leg up in terms of being able to move into managerial positions down the road with that organization, or at least being able to utilize them as a reference in a way that they can speak to your leadership capabilities. Other things that go into it are really familiarizing yourself with menu. Both from a food standpoint, but also from wine and spirits, familiarizing yourself with how back of the house operates, and saying something that doesn't get talked about very often is also demonstrating that you're a person who is a team player on all fronts, who not only is able to build camaraderie with front of the house staff, but also having a strong back of the house rapport, being able to interact with the kitchen staff on the cold side or grill side in a positive and professional manner always. These are all things that contribute to the perception of management and owners as to whether or not you have the leadership capabilities that they would then consider for a management position.
Awesome. You've actually walked us right into the second topic of our session today. We got so many requests about what to do when you get weeded, when it gets crazy, how to keep your cool, how to find balance, just so many questions. And I really liked one of the first things that you said in regards to this question is being weeded is a good thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing, because nobody makes money when it's slow. That really that stuck with me. So a few of the key points that you were speaking about were about delegating, about finding finding that place of your zone, finding that place of peace, and how being proactive can really make a difference. So I wanted to start with the first point that you brought up. Never let the customer see you sweat. Why? Why is that important? What's the theory behind that?
Well, I've been saying this for years. Customers smell fear. Uh, they do. And a server that's out of control and panicking, um, contrary to what intuitively you would think, well, that people would be sympathetic, but that's not the case. Actually, it creates an opposite reaction. Servers that I've spoken to over the years, the worst serving experience they've had have always been around getting hit with an unusual rush, panicking, and literally having table after table stiff them or leave them a very low percentage. And the reason, and often, listening to these stories, the people I've been speaking to, they often attribute it to, well, because the kitchen was so slow, or I just couldn't get the people, and all this and all these things. But in the end, it really was the panic that the customers were reacting negatively to, because at the end of the day, and I'm a customer, just as often as I'm a server. At the end of the day, a customer doesn't and shouldn't have to care about whether or not a server is sick and you're shorthanded, or if there isn't a host, or if a busload of nuns pulled up and suddenly the whole place is filled, and crazy. They're there to spend their money to have a dining experience, and they're expecting to have a normal, pleasurable dining experience. And so when you're swamped, it's okay to take that in the back and do whatever you need. Drink massive quantities of water, vent to the kitchen, vent to whoever you can. But when you're out on the floor, you got to be calm and cool. You can't let on that inside yourself you may be panicking and just out of control, but you can't let that show to the customer. The other part of it is, and I mean this in sincerity, and when you're weeded, you're gonna, if you handle it right, and like I said, if you don't panic, you maintain a professional, calm demeanor, you can get yourself through the most unbelievable rushes, and do so with flying colors, and make a grip of money, and you're making a lot more money than you would if you were just standing around, waiting for the busload of nuns, so to speak, twiddling your thumbs. I hate being slow. There is nothing worse than just standing around, because you run out of stuff to do. There's only so much prepping you can do or cleaning you can do. Standing around is the worst. Given my druthers, and this just happened to me, last Saturday night. I was cocktailing in the bar, and I had been there since 4 o'clock. At 9:30, I had waited on 2 people in the lounge. 2.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Between 10 o'clock and 10:15, in a 15-minute time period, I got seated 15 tables in the lounge. and my sales went from, I had sold $120 previous to, at 9:30 I was at $120 in sales. I ended my evening selling $1,476.
Oh my gosh.
So. Wow. Now that's not how we want to do things. That's not the ideal, because many servers can talk about how awful it is when you're super slow and then get hit because you're not ready for it. You'd much rather be steady, from the very start. But my point is that being super busy, getting triple seated, quadruple seated, all of that. Every person that sits down in your section they got a wallet. They're looking to give you money. They're looking to, pay your mortgage or pay your heating bill. They're looking to do these things. So getting yourself in the mindset of, I want to be busy. I want to be so busy tonight. Getting yourself in that mindset is the best way to get yourself on a path to making more money, period. If you get yourself inside of that mindset, I want to be super busy. I want to be slamming. I want to be running for 5 hours. 6 hours, how long it takes. I want to, if you get yourself inside that mindset, you're going to make a lot of money.
Can you talk to me a little bit about courtesy drive-bys? I really liked that concept.
I did that on Saturday night because you have so many tables all at once, and a lot of times you don't even see who got seated first. So basically, you'll go to a table and you'll be talking to them, and you'll look at over at another one, and they'll be looking at you, and literally you'll just say, you'll wave at them, and then you'll just like maybe point and say, "Hey, nice hat," and then you'll return to the people that you're talking to. A lot of times customers are savvy. They can see that, well, gee, 10 minutes ago there was only us in here, and now there's all these other people. I had people commenting on, wow, you really got hit. Not from the standpoint of, boy, you look so stressed out, but from the standpoint of, wow, there's a lot of tables in here all of a sudden with menus looking to order food just like me. So a lot of times, if I, in the serving industry, there's this great, I don't know what you call it, a platitude or a rule of, get to a guest. Some places say within 2 minutes. Some say within a minute. You always greet a guest within a minute or 2 minutes or whatever. It should never be applied as a hard, fast rule because, again, all guests are different. A lot of guests like to just get their coats off and settle in and have a little conversation, and then they want to think about, talking about food and wine. But basically, if you can't get to a guest right away and it's going to be a little bit of time, make eye contact with them, wave at them. If you walk past their table, just put your hand on the table quick and just say, "I'm going to be right with you." Just something to acknowledge without being a formal, "I'm at your table now. I'm ready to take your order. I'm ready." Because sometimes a drive-by is all you can give. And again, it's all about communication. Communication. If you communicate with your guest, whether it be just communicating, "I'm here, I'm going to be with you," these types of things go a long way towards making sure that at the end of the dining experience, they're going to remember that they had a great plate of nachos, or they had great wings, or they had a great steak. They really liked the ambiance. Boy, it was really hopping, as opposed to, wow, wasn't our server a mess, or man, things took forever. I mean, for want of a better way to put it, as servers, we literally have 90% of the control of whether or not a customer is going to have a positive dining experience, and that includes even if the kitchen runs long, if you start running into 45-minute ticket times, we are in control of whether or not that customer remembers how long the food took, or the great server that was on top of everything and was talking to him about this and talking about that.
Mm-hmm. Wow, 90%. That's a
Oh, yeah.
that is a lot. So more than ambiance, more than the quality of the food, more than anything else, it's that engagement and that one-on-one.
Service is paramount. Absolutely.
Awesome. Talk to me a little bit about delegating on the floor.
Again, when you're busy, you've got people that you can turn to. Now, if all the other servers are getting hit at the same time, it's going to be difficult to delegate to a server. That's when you look for wait assistants. If you can't find a wait assistant, find a bartender. If you can't find a bartender, or there isn't a bartender, find a manager. Always try to delegate whenever possible. And usually if pushed, you'll be able to find somebody that can help you out. Usually when there's a rush, it's not always everybody's busy, crazy out of their mind. Usually there's somebody that's got some time to help out. My go-to is always go to a server first, say, "Hey, you got a sec, can you grab this for me?" Or, "Hey, can you drop off these waters over here?" "Hey, I got drinks at the bar, can you just pick them up for me and put them over here?" Those little things, and they don't sound like much, but they really add up, from the standpoint of time. You pick up so much time when you delegate.
And the last thing I wanted to cover on this topic was single table vision. What is that, and how can it be avoided?
See, it kind of gets back to what I was talking about earlier, where you focus in on basically just your section and your people, and you don't see how the things that happen outside of your area, like outside of your section and other people's sections, at the bar, other places, a restaurant, they all impact you. A negative dining experience in Bob's section over there, or over in Sarah's section over there, impacts you. Not tonight, but it impacts you 2 weeks down the road or a month down the road, where everybody's scratching their head going, geez, we're just not as busy as we were. You know, I wonder why we're not that busy anymore. Geez, last year we were at this point and now we're at this point.
Uh,
It's I try to whenever I work in a restaurant, and now I'm really grateful to have a management opportunity here. I try to look at things beyond the single table, single section vision. I try to look at things globally. Um, you know, it's never fun to have a bad customer for anybody. It's not, you know, and I wouldn't wish a negative dining experience on you know, anybody's section, because at the end of the day, when a restaurant begins, if a restaurant declines, if their customer base declines, it affects everybody. It affects everybody who works there. So servers, you know, in a serving environment, if they were to think more globally and really, you know, take a vested interest in not only their own section but other people's section, and in the dining experiences of everybody in the restaurant and not just their, you know, paying, tipping clients, in the long run it's going to be, you know, for, you know, to everybody's favor, because it's going to ensure that the quality of service is there, that the customer base, you know, remains loyal and remains satisfied.
and I lied. I have one more question.
That's okay.
Um, you were talking about suggestive selling, particularly how it plays into appetizers and wait time, but also the art of the gentle upsell on the menu. I'd love to cover some of that for the audience. We did get several questions about that.
Well, this is especially important when you're working in restaurants that are not as busy, where you're really scrambling to try to get tables and get a decent amount of sales so you can earn some money. In these environments, it's even more critical that you upsell, because if, for example, if you're working in a lunch spot and your average check is kind of in that $25 to $30 range, being able to sell a couple cups of soup for a couple salads going out, and maybe a dessert at the end, getting them to order a bottle of sparkling water instead of flat water, suddenly a $25 tab becomes a $40 tab. And so right there you've gone from, at 20% earning a $5 tip to earning an $8 tip. And you'd be surprised over the course of a lunch shift, if you're able to upsell, let's say, 75% of your tables, and people are out there might be thinking 75%, that sounds really high. It really isn't, because there's so many ways to upsell. You can upsell from flat water to sparkling. You can upsell, when they're ordering a salad, do you want to start with a cup of soup? They're ordering a pasta, you want to start with a salad. You can upsell them on dessert. There's so many things that you can do. Or you want to start with an appetizer. We haven't even broached that. For me, it's become second nature. I mean, it's impossible for me to take an order at face value. If somebody, even if somebody wants to order a burger, do you want to start with a cup of soup? You want to start with an appetizer? We got amazing, this or that. It's not. There's some people out there that get. I don't know what it is. They think that upselling is shilling, and it's not the same thing. The thing to remember, and it kind of gets back to my point about being a guide to the dining experience, being a curator. You want to make people aware of different options, because sometimes it just doesn't occur to a person. I mean, if you have amazing, tomato basil soup, for example, they don't know that if they're there for the first time. And if they order a salad, you got to let them know that you have an amazing tomato basil, that they, people all around, come for miles to have it. You need to tell people this stuff and let them decide whether or not they're in the mood to do it. And you'd be surprised how often they are. And all of these things added up, you can take any shift. Lunch shifts are different, obviously, from dinner. But if you take a lunch shift, for example, if you're upselling, if you have 7 tables, let's say you have 7 tables and you're able to upsell an average of, let's say, $8 a table. That's an extra $56, on a lunch shift. Doesn't sound like much, but that's an extra, $11, $12 in your pocket.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So.
Definitely. So the next thing I wanted to look at is we're opening up the floor for questions to Will. questions, anything that you'd like to talk about or discuss, just hit us up on Twitter at I Like My Waitress, and we definitely have a lot of questions that have come in the last 15, 20